queries through the chat box only. Hello. Yes. So I hope I'm audible to everybody now. So there are certain instructions for the participants. We would encourage your active participation and interaction with the speaker by placing your comments or queries through the chat box only. The registered participants who wish to receive an e-certificate of participation will be required to fill up a feedback form. The link of this feedback form or attendance form will be provided at the end of the session. I would also request the participants to not to present themselves during the webinar so that we can have a seamless presentation.
Good morning, ma'am. The voice is not audible. Oh, it's breaking.
Okay, that's fine. So is it fine? I hope I'm audible now.
Nidhi, you may start.
So, yes, sir. A blissful morning to everyone. I am Nidhi from Postgraduate Department of English. Welcome you all on behalf of Swami Premanand Mahavidyalaya Mukerian, District Hoshiarpur, Punjab, to the national webinar on academic writing. I would like to extend a heartfelt welcome to distinguished guests of the day, our esteemed resource person, Professor Dr. Pushpinder Sayal from the Department of English and Cultural Studies, Punjab University, Chandigarh. Dr. Sunil Sharma, Principal Swami Premanand Mahavidyalaya Mukerian, Dr. Gulshan Kumar, former Head Department of English, Swami Premanand Mahavidyalaya Mukerian, and the academicians and scholars from all over India. It's a sheer privilege to have you all on this platform today. Swami Premanand Mahavidyalaya is one of the pioneering institutes of Punjab. It was established in 1971, and since its inception, it has aimed to impart quality education. It gives us immense pleasure to announce that the college is entering its 50th year of success and excellence in the field of education. Even in present times of crisis, under the patronage of our revered principal, Dr. Sunil Sharma, our college is leaving no stone unturned to enrich the enthusiastic learners. The college has been providing true value and substance to numerous participants by organizing a series of webinars and workshops even during this coronavirus time. Talking about the Department of English, it is amongst the earliest ones to be set up in the college. Ever since its inception, the department has continuously strived to keep itself in sync with the development in the academic world. The post-graduation course was introduced in 2004, and since then, the department has produced a number of toppers in Punjab University, Chandigarh. Apart from PG and UG courses, the Department of English also constitutes of the Department of Communication Skills and offers a certificate course in communication skills. Not taking much of everyone's time, I would request our worthy principal, Dr. Sunil Sharma, to formally welcome our distinguished guests. Thank you.
Good morning to all. I'm audible to all. Good morning. I'm audible.
Yes, yes, fine, fine. Yeah,
All of you are requested to kindly mute yourself. Even the computer department of my college is requested to mute all those who are sitting over there, so that the echo sound will not be there. So first of all, I welcome Dr. Pushpinder Sial, Department of English, Punjab University, Chandigarh, and all the esteemed delegates who are attending this webinar. Okay, so on the behalf of all the members of my managing committee and all the staff members, I am really thankful to Dr. Pushpinder Sial for sparing her precious time. So as all of us, we know that we are passing through a phase which we have never expected. This COVID-19 has paralyzed the whole of the system, but we are continuously and doing consistent efforts so that all the learned people may come across to overcome all these hindrance or what the COVID has offered. So we have started doing virtual webinars, seminars, and all those things. So today, the postgraduate department of English is organizing a webinar on academic writing. As all of us, we know that this academic writing is of great importance. So basically, the general purpose of academic writing is to present the information in order to display a clear understanding and a particular subject. Okay. From my point of view, means academic writing requires well-informed arguments, and the statement must be supported by evidence, which from scholarly sources, as in a research paper, results of a study or experiment, or quotations from a primary text. The use of these evidence, I think so, gives credibility to an argument. And basically, being in my research, I have read that basically there are four kinds of academic writing that are include descriptive, analytic, persuasive, and critical. And each of this type has a specific purpose. Okay, just to explain, to describe, to retell, and to pursue, etc. So not talking much before, because we have the expert panel for this webinar, Dr. Pushpinder Sial, and she must enlighten all the participant with his kind vision about all academic writing, so that the people maybe get benefited even in this stage of COVID-19, when physically all the contact has been viral, but we are kind enough for sparing their precious time for the, especially for the Dr. Pushpinder Sial and all the participants who are a part of this webinar. And at last, on the behalf of all the members of my managing committee, I sincerely thanks all the participants, and specifically Dr. Pushpinder Sial for sparing his precious time. And I also congratulate all the members of English department with who have done a great effort to make this event successful. So I wish all the participants will get best out of Dr. Pushpinder Sial and how to write their academic writing. Thank you. Thanks you all.
yeah. Should I start?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, I just need 2 minutes to give
Okay,
a formal
okay.
introduction. If you could,
Okay.
just 2 minutes, ma'am.
Okay,
So,
okay.
uh, before introducing our guest of the day, I would just like to give a brief about the topic of the webinar, academic writing. Academic writing has become an interestingly important part of education as parents and educators have realized the value of critical thinking. It has always had a central role in the academic arena globally. The teachers train students to write academically as the writing skills benefit them later. It not only serves as a tool of communication that conveys acquired knowledge in a specific field of study, but also helps the students to analyze, convey understanding, think critically, and focus on technique and style. Academic writing is at heart of teaching and learning in higher education. Students are assessed largely by what they write and need to learn both general and academic questions as well as disciplinary writing requirements in order to be successful in higher education. Considering the importance of academic writing, it has been recently added as one of the papers in MA English by Punjab University, Chandigarh. Now, I would like to introduce our resource person for today's session, Professor Dr. Pushpinder Sayal. She is a luminary with a huge amount of expertise and experience. She has been an academician par excellence and has been teaching in the Department of English at Punjab University, Chandigarh for more than 4 decades. Post retirement, she is now serving as guest faculty in the same department. She's been a gold medalist in both graduation and post graduation and did her PhD from University of Lancaster, UK. Her area of expertise is linguistics. Ma'am has many awards and fellowships to her credit. She was the chairperson of the department from 1997 to 2000 and has initiated many courses on language, teaching, and English proficiency. She has also served as a director at Lucknow campus of CFL University, where she initiated programs in collaboration with British Council. Adding to this, she has organized many academic staff college refresher courses and conducted British Council courses on teacher training. She has a large number of research publications and books to her credit and has examined PhD theses from IIT Mumbai, EFLU Hyderabad, CU of Punjab, Bathinda, GNDU, Amritsar, HP University, Shimla. Ma'am, the more we say about your accomplishments, the less it is. We are extremely honored by your gracious presence. Without further ado, I would request Dr. Sayal to take over. The platform is all yours, ma'am. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can very well hear you.
Everyone? Okay. And so everyone else can just mute their mics for now so that you can hear me better. And so I would be there on the screen. You can close your videos. And then later on when we talk, then you can switch on your microphone. Okay. Shall we start? Should we start, Nidhi? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, you can
Okay.
start.
Okay, okay, all right. Good morning to everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me here on this forum. And thank you to the principal and to Professor Gulshan Kumar, who has been a long-standing associate. And I am familiar with the SPN College Mukerian as well, since my student days actually. And I'm also happy to see so many people from all over the country. It's very good to see everybody here, and it's a pleasure to talk to you all. I hope that I will be saying something of importance or of use to you, and I will try certainly. We can have questions afterwards, or we can have a discussion. Oh, please close your mic, please. I can hear some people talking, right? Now, I'll start with basically the subject academic writing, which is very broad, really. and I don't think I can say everything I have to say about it. But let me start from a couple of things. First of all, academic writing is practical. So it doesn't make much sense to give a talk or a lecture on it, because it is something you learn by doing over a period of time. So all one can say is that let's discuss some of the problems that we face in academic writing, or some of the issues. Um, and the other thing I want to say is that the generally, in order to be able to learn how to do academic writing, of course, it takes years, because you are part of the academic profession, and so you will do your work throughout your life in this area. But basically, when it comes to the university and college courses, we think generally that it takes about 4 semesters of coursework to grasp some of the things about academic writing, and to be able to do enough exercises and practice in different areas of academic writing. And also because reading is a part of academic writing too. We need to read academic works and journals and research papers, etc., and make notes from those, and then maybe then use them in our writing. So reading is an integral part of academic writing, and so when we put it into a course, then the course becomes actually quite comprehensive. It would have to take about 4 semesters of work. You see, to people on the literature side, it's often not very clear as to what we do in these 4 courses of academic writing. They seem to think that these are maybe empty courses, that they are empty courses, and that these courses do not have the texts in them for literary reading, etc. So that is something that maybe it's not the right impression, because we can bring in reading from literary, scientific, and philosophical, historical, all kinds of writing into an academic writing course. So we can choose what reading to give to the students, which would be helpful to them in framing their own arguments, and be able to write about them. Say, for instance, writing a book review, or writing a critique on a certain book, writing a review article, or giving a response to an academic response to current academic work. And this is done across disciplines. That's very important. So there may be people from over here today who are actually not from English, let's say. They are from sciences, and they are from languages, or from other areas, social sciences. And I'd like to say that academic writing is required in all the disciplines.
Sorry to interrupt, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt, ma'am. Ma'am, your mic has been muted.
Sorry, when did that happen? Yeah. Okay. So where did it get muted? So all I'm saying is that, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. You are very much clear.
Yeah. So so I'm saying that academic writing is needed across all disciplines, and that whether it's sciences, social sciences, or languages, or literature, whatever it may be. And I have a point to make about the Indian languages as well. We all want to advance knowledge and learning in our languages, and it's true that the discourses in all the languages are not the same. Every language will have its own mode of discourse. but still we really do need to do or understand do academic writing in the discourses in our languages also. So, as such, I will just point out some general rules or some general ideas with regard to what constitutes the basis of academic writing, and how do we go about it so that we can make academic writing a component, not just in the English department, but in, let's say, history department, or Punjabi or Hindi or some other language department, because there one component in the courses over there would enable students to write first their term papers, then short essays, and then longer pieces of work, and prepare them for various activities of research, publication, and journals, writing for journals, etc., in their academic career. So that can it can be a part of any discipline. With that, I'd like to just say that yes, Principal Saab has got it all quite clear that academic writing consists of presentation of ideas, and that it has certain elements in it. And I also learned a new word. He said that we have all been viral, and that's nice, to use viral as a verb, so that we are just like we say we've been somebody's been electrocuted. We're using that as a verb. So same thing here, that we are using viral as a verb over here, and that's interesting. Perhaps this kind of usage, this new coinage will become permanent. Hopefully not. Anyway, so let me start first with the um, the difference between academic writing and other kinds of writing. Many times we start a course with uh, this sort of clarification that we need. We need to clarify it because everybody asks, like, what is the difference between ordinary writing ordinarily and academic writing? What is so special about academic writing? So I'll enumerate about 4 or 5 things which belong to this particular field or genre, we might say, of academic writing. Regardless of discipline, I mean, they will pertain to all the disciplines. So these points of difference which are there in academic writing, which we as the teachers and as practitioners of academic writing need to understand, and we need to practice it. So I'll start first with the number one difference, and I hope you have something to scribble notes on, because you might be able to sort of make use of this later on. So the first thing that I'd like to say is
Ma'am, your mic has been muted again.
oh God. Okay, so the first difference between academic writing and other kinds of writing is a system of organization of ideas. You see, in ordinary writing, we might be able to go all over the place, just as we do in our lectures also sometimes. We may start from anywhere, go back and forth, and then maybe have some digressions, and all sorts of things can come in. And you know that in creative writing, for instance, we are quite free to follow our whims and fancies. But in academic writing, the system of organization of ideas has to be followed. And it is a system which has its own rigor. We can't really do whatever we want. Now, let me illustrate this. Uh, for instance, when presenting certain ideas, we need to organize them into, let's say, starting from the most general observation. generalization or a general idea, and then narrow down to a particular or a specific idea. Or the other way around, we may start from something particular or a few particular cases, and then we may derive some generalization out of it. So, whichever process we follow, we have to be pretty clear that this is the sequence that is in operation. That here we are presenting generalizations, and here we are presenting particular instances or examples. This we have to indicate by, of course, our use of language, by saying, giving indicators over there, that giving some general, it is believed that, for instance, a phrase like this, it is believed that, is a introduction to a generalization. And then you could say, for instance, or to exemplify, or to illustrate. That clearly indicates that you're now going to move to a particular instance of something. So one kind of organization is that. Then we also have a logic, or what we might call a dialectic, working in this organization of ideas. Dialectic, as many of you might be familiar with, is this three-part sort of movement of opposites and then the synthesis. So we have a thesis signaled by a thesis statement. So we make a thesis statement which is declarative. So we declare something which becomes a thesis. It becomes a thesis statement. And then we declare the opposite of that. We might say something like, however, and then introduce the opposite idea or the antithesis. And then we put these ideas together to build a synthesis. So this is what is known as that kind of a dialectic that is usually seen in presentation, in organization of ideas and arguments, because we may need to build an argument. You see, in academic writing, even if it is a descriptive or a narrative type of writing, as was mentioned in the introduction, it still needs an argumentative base, or an expository base, so that it means that you're not merely describing something, or you're not merely narrating a story, but that description or that narrative is meant to lead to some sort of an argument or some kind of an explanation of certain phenomena or certain situations, right? So that is what lifts it to the level of academic, where you can see the core of the argument inside the writing. Even though you may use devices like description, narration, etc., you may tell a story by means, by that means you would illustrate something, or you may describe something or define something, and then go on to give your ideas. But then you see, all these are part of the academic framework, the core of which is the basic argument. What is it that you are driving at? It always has a point. So it cannot be directionless. So that point needs to be pretty clear to you from the beginning. Now, in this, we might say that some kinds of academic writing at initial stage can be exploratory. That is, maybe you're not sure of your point, right? You may not be sure of your point in the initial stages, and you may still be working through your ideas. Preparing a research paper, for instance, you may have a certain idea to start with. As we say, that it may just be a germ of an idea at that point, or it may just be a twinkle in your eye. I've thought of this thing, and that is where it might start from. It's the source of the river. So I'm giving this metaphor of the river, that you have a source, and of course the source of everything is the mind, and in the mind we generate ideas, we generate something. That's the source. Somewhere in our consciousness an idea emerges, somewhere in our consciousness a thought emerges. That is the source of the river. That is the Gangotri from where the rest will flow. Now, as you go along, however, many other tributaries will join that flow. You know, many other tributaries will be there, and you have to see which one is going to be helpful to you, and that tributary joins your main idea, and then you also look at those tributaries which do not support your main idea, because then you will have to counter them as you go along. You'll have to counter that idea, you'll have to present a better idea than the previous one. So this is the metaphor of a river, and as the river broadens, it expands and expands, and then you see it carries with it other knowledge as well, the knowledge of other people as well. So as it goes along, it will broaden the area, the field. So now that depends on how broad you want to make it. Obviously, if you're writing a book, then you can afford to explore an idea to considerable extent. But if it is a research journal or an article in a research journal, you may have to limit your ideas. That is also something that we learn in academic writing: delimitation, where to stop, because that becomes a problem for many of our research scholars. It was a problem for me too when I started doing my PhD, because then you have to see which particular small area you're going to explore, because the examiners or the academicians want to know in depth about that particular area. They don't want to know something airy fairy about a large number of things, because that you can get from anywhere. They don't want to know number of generalizations about the world and the universe, etc., all those things. They don't mean much. What they want from you is that they want you to explain and go into in depth into some particular area and show that you have something to contribute to that area. That will make your article worthy of publication, because then, however pressed the editors may be in a journal, they may not have space and they may not have any time, but then they will see, oh wow, this person has something new to say, something good to say in depth about this particular thing. At least this little perspective was not known before, or this was not thought about before. So even that little thing is quite good. It's not that you have to really do a tremendous work and only then you can stop. Even one little thing can be a contribution to the stream of knowledge. So this is how you try to build up your ideas. So you can put in narrative. As I said, in social sciences we use case studies. When we use case studies, we build narratives. We tell stories of various people, situations, problems, etc. And then we give our observations on those stories. It's in the observation part, which leads then to interpretation, that the true academic worth lies, right? So first we do observation as much as possible. And at the observation level, we don't hold any bias or prejudice. We just observe whatever comes before us. And we don't try to interpret it in the very first instance. Then, as we think it over, and then we see certain patterns coming up from the different case studies, we'll be able to make an interpretation. So, this is an exercise in patience, let's say. Hmm? So, patience is one of the qualities that we really need in academic writing, because slowly, slowly, as Kipling used to say, slowly, slowly, you catch the monkey. So that kind of patience is needed. Now, the second part of it, yes, let me just also talk a little bit more about organization of ideas. In the beginning, when you're putting your ideas together, of course, you will find in all these academic writing books techniques, hmm, techniques for the organizing, that is generating ideas by making a mind map or by making a flow chart or a diagram. And so that is just a kind of a preliminary thing for the person to do, that before you start writing, you draw a map of where your thoughts are going, what kind of trajectory your thoughts are taking throughout, right? So that you will then organize into how it seems to you to be making sense. And that's why drafting and planning, these are very essential activities in academic writing. You know, time and again, we've been telling students what we ourselves have also learned, mistakes that we ourselves have also committed at an early stage, which is that writing an article, you know, an interpretive article, maybe on a poet or something, and submitting it to our teachers. And we think, oh, great, we've done a great job. But the teacher comes back to us and says, I didn't find anything much in it, you know, and then we are disappointed. What has happened? It's that we haven't really done enough in terms of drafting and planning. We think that the first thing that we wrote, and maybe we type it up or we write it by hand and submit to the teacher, is great, it's wonderful, and that's all we need to do. But many times when we ourselves look at that piece again after some time, we ourselves see that, oh, I actually needed to plan it in a different way. I needed to put these ideas differently. I needed to give this kind of illustration from the poet, or I needed to support this quotation by some other sort of points. So that is why the drafting and planning is absolutely essential. Let's say we all observe this practice of making three drafts. Hmm? So the first draft would be based on our mind map or our flow chart or diagram, our initial thinking, and we make our first draft. In that first draft, we also try to see, is there anything that I can get from some other books, some other sources that I can add. So this is all the building the first draft. In the second draft, then you begin to see what will come first, what will come next, what will come next after that, what will come later on, what will come earlier, etc. So that whole sequencing and flow of the text will be built up in the second draft. Without that, we will just have just a kind of a mishmash of ideas, preliminary ideas that came to us, and we thought, oh, these are very good ideas. Let me just put them down and present them. But the organization activity is important at the second stage, and then the third draft will be the final draft. And in this draft,
Sorry to interrupt, ma'am. Your mic has been muted.
again, yeah. So these days, there's a huge penalty for um, using the wrong words, and I will come to that, of course, in discussing vocabulary. But there is a huge penalty in using words which are detrimental to certain people or certain sections of society, or are simply inappropriate or wrong words. And Of course, in your first draft, you may have used them because that is a little bit of an unconscious flow of thoughts. But in your final draft, when you're editing, it can't be excused. It can't be excused if you use a derogatory word or you use offhand something for an academic or for any person or anyone in an inappropriate way. You know. Now there you may have to look at in terms of language. You may have to look at adjectives. You know that adjectives are sometimes we use adjectives carelessly. We put an adjective on something which is inappropriate. So that's something we really have to see in academic writing, that we can't be careless about our adjectives. We think descriptive writing is very easy, to describe something. But hang on, just see when you're describing something, what kind of adjectives you're using. You know, are they highly colored? Do they reflect some bias? Do they reflect some prejudice in some way? Look at them again. Do you really need to do that? What purpose will it serve to have that word over there? Think of a more neutral word. Think of something which will be more, objective, let's say. Let's use that word, objective. Yeah. So now, in terms of language, since I'm talking about language, you will have to decide, when you are writing, that you would have to decide what point of view you are reflecting. That's why I was talking about the use of language, because language reflects a point of view. For instance, simply your use of first person, second person, third person, personal pronouns. Now first personal pronouns, whether you say I or you say we or you say you or they, them, those people, you know, it means a lot. It reflects certain ideology. It reflects certain meaning. Who are you calling they? Who are you talking about when you're saying we? So it reflects a point of view. Now, even in text, here is where we find, if you are, as teachers, going to construct an academic writing course, you may put some passages for reading, some text for reading. So choose those passages or texts which reflect points of view, different points of view, and teach the students to detect, like a detective, huh? To detect what kind of point of view does this writer seem to be having, right? So, so you might find that point of view is sometime on the surface, and sometimes it's hidden inside the text. How is it hidden inside the text? Maybe sometimes we don't even notice the personal pronouns. We don't even notice the use of active and passive voice. We know that when a person doesn't want to mention the subject, you put the sentence into a passive, because in a passive, you don't need to mention the subject. You have a choice. If you don't want to mention the subject, you can use a passive sentence. But in an active sentence, you can't do without the subject. So if you find a lot of passives being used in a certain text, you can easily see that here is a point of view where the writer does not want to commit himself or herself. The writer is trying to avoid giving responsibility to certain things. So there are many things like that that we can judge from the language of a text. And then when we read it, we can also get some tips for writing. Because we understand, okay, writers are now presenting different points of view in different ways, using different kinds of language. They may be using lots of adjectives. That also tells us about the writer's point of view. They may be using personal pronouns. They may be using passives, a lot of passives, and so on. These are all indicators. They are all signals. They are signs of the thoughts of the writer. What is his point of view? So as you become more sensitive to that, as you become sensitive to the point of view, then you learn how to develop your own point of view in your writing. What is it you're trying to project? How can you project it clearly? how can you project it to your reader in a better way, because your reader will see your point of view, and you can be effective in influencing your reader or persuading your reader for accepting your point of view. So there are many things you can do. You can see, I hope you understand that it's not a dull and dry exercise, academic writing. It's very interesting once you start developing points of view, because you say, okay, why did I say this particular thing in this way? Should I have said it a little differently? And then you write a different kind of sentence, and you say, okay, now I think this shows my point of view better than the previous sentence. Okay, so this is the sort of thing that alone in peace and quiet, writing is a matter of sitting alone in peace and quiet. It's ideally situated to coronavirus situation, because writing is something you do in peace and quiet. So you sit there and you tinker around with the sentences, and you see which point of view is being developed, how it is being developed. And of course, you are the master, you are the creator of that text. So you can actually choose for yourself. You can decide for yourself. You have the power to decide for yourself which kind of sentence will express my idea better. Right? So these are some of the aspects of organization. Now, let me come to another thing which differentiates academic writing from ordinary writing, and that is vocabulary, terminology, or what we also call register. Register, for people who know about language teaching and language. Register is the variation that you make in the language according to the subject matter. So, for instance, we have a legal register. If you're writing some legal stuff, you will be using all legal terminology, legal register. If you are writing something scientific, you will obviously be choosing writing words which are scientific in nature, which pertain to your subject. So that is what we mean by the specific vocabulary of the discipline in which you are writing, academic discipline. But other than the specific vocabulary of that discipline or the register of that discipline, there's another element to academic register or academic vocabulary, and that is the use of a certain higher level of words. So, for instance, I mean, a simple example might be something like, if you say to try something, then you can a higher level would be to say to attempt. So attempt would be a synonym of try, but attempt would be something you would find in an academic work more than you will find the word try. So that's what I mean, that even some common words are chosen differently for academic writing. And here, let me also say that there are certain words that crop up again and again, and students often don't know the difference between them. For example, words like discuss and explain. Okay. So we pass our whole school, college, university without knowing what is the difference between discuss something, explain something, critique something, examine something, explore something, elucidate something. Now these are what we call D words. D stands for direction words. So you will find, please discuss this, please give a critique, please explain, please elucidate, examine, or explore. In the titles of thesis also, we find that sometimes the scholars use the words carelessly, an exploration of, whereas the thesis is not an exploration at all. but in the title it says an exploration, you know. Or it may say a critique of, and there is no critique element in the thesis. So how can you say you're doing something and not do it, you know? So if you say you're doing a critique, then you jolly well give a critique. If you're exploring something, then do that, do the exploration. So let's not say something else and do something else, you know. This is a common pitfall that at least in our system, as distinguished from the West, we do a lot, you know. We just fall in love with some of these words like critique and elucidate and delve into the issue, delve into the matter, etc. What is delving? How do you delve into a matter? I mean, come on, let's just think about what that verb means, and let's see if we can say something else. You know, so let's if we are going to discuss something, then we should know what discussion is. If we are going to critique something, we must know what are the elements of a critique, and so on. So these are the things that we need to understand. Usually, academic vocabulary consists of a lot of multisyllabic words, you know. Good or bad, this seems necessary for academic discourse, that we use multisyllabic words, we use nominalizations a lot, and we make the words longer, etc. Part of it is a need, part of it is necessary, and part of it is pretense. Okay, so we have to admit it that sometimes we are pretentious in academic writing. But the good academic writing, even if it uses good jargon or good terminology, it's not pretentious. The writer means what he or she says. So some writers have a naturally simple and lucid style, and other writers may have a more jargonized kind of style. And what we have to do is to try to have a balance between the two. Now, the reference that I can give to you for suggesting to your students as well is the academic word list, AWL. It's a part of the general, you may be familiar with the GSL, which is the General Service List of English words, and the old one, Michael Wood's old General Service List of English words. And then there's a specific list for academic writers. It's called AWL, Academic Word List, Academic Word List. You'll find it on the internet. You just need to Google it. And academic word list. So it's got sections of vocabulary in it, where you see bunches of words. So you may have a word like assume. So what are the different words you make out of assume? You can nominalize it by making it a word like assumption, and so on. Assuming, assumed, etc. So you make several words out of that one word. So you get a large number of such words that you can frequently use in academic writing, and you can refer to the AWL, that is the academic writing list. Okay, so then now, thirdly, I'll come to the display of information, which is data, graphs, citations, sources. Okay, so in lot of textual writing, we have citations, we have sources. We have sources and we quote from those sources. Or we may be, of course, presenting some data in the form of graphs, and then we explain that data. Citations we give in the bibliography or some form of textual citation also. Now we have to be very careful about that. We, of course, need to know the methodology, which you get from, say, MLA style sheet, or you get from the MHRA, Modern Humanities Research Association style sheet, and so on. There are many manuals of style where you can get your style of citation, style of quoting from sources. But let's remember that there's a very thin line to be drawn between plagiarism or oversighting, oversighting and overquoting. and relevant, or you know, actual necessary quoting. So many times we see that there is too much of quote, and that the text is just a series of quotes, and it's almost quite embarrassing sometimes when our students present just a whole text lifted from some other source, you know. And where is the point of quoting when the whole text is lifted from another source, you know? What is the need for quotation then? The whole of the text is taken from somewhere else. So that is absolutely not right. And it of course counts for plagiarism. It can't be done. And so eh, what constitutes a good exercise would be that you take up a piece of text, you write out a paraphrase of it in your own words as to what are the main ideas there, and then you present it, that okay, so and so says this. You don't give any direct quotations, but you use your own words to explain what that writer has said, or what that researcher or scholar has said. That's always better. So that has to be done. Unfortunately, students do not do that spade work during the course, during the time of the course, and then they're in a hurry to submit their term paper, and then there is a deadline. Even for many thesis writers, there's a deadline for their PhD or something, and then they cut corners and they put in a lot of quoted material, which they don't really bother to explain or to give in their own words. So paraphrasing is, along with other things like skimming and scanning in reading, note taking, paraphrasing is also an important part of academic writing. And these are the things which need to be done as the preliminaries, because you can't hope to write well unless you uh, understand the ideas of others. And the best way to understand the ideas of others is to try to put them down in your own words. So if I've read an article, I might try to sit down and say, okay, let me write 2 pages of summarization of this article. Like, what are the main things that the person has done? So you read an article on the internet, and then you make a few notes on it as to what is your take home from that article. What is it that you have gleaned from that source? That is what is going to be important for you, not just verbatim trying to put down printed material right lifted straight from the internet. It is a serious default in academic writing to do that sort of thing. And the sooner our students go leave that practice, the better it is going to be for them. Otherwise, they won't get anywhere. You know, they will just have to either leave the academic field altogether, do something else, or they'll have to learn it the hard way over many, many years. So, better to start now. So, this is something about the citation of sources and data, graphs, etc. And then uh, the as I've already explained to you, that you will move towards your finalization of your um, final draft. One last word that I'd like to say is about the use of models. Now, earlier on in teaching languages, we used to think that good models of writing are very essential, that we must study the classics, or we must study the way writers have written before, and that gives us a model for writing. Now, today we are a little, careful about that, cautious about using models, because for one thing, many models are written at a time which was much earlier, and the style of writing is not something that we practice today, and it may not be interesting or readable for the modern reader. So that is one fault. And the other is that when you take a model, you might also tend to follow the ideas, and then you may be inhibited from developing your own style, reflecting your own ideas in your own way. So today, what we recommend is that we write ourselves, like let's say a first draft, and then we formulate our second draft, in which, as I said earlier, we are going to be putting our sequence of ideas together. And so in the second draft, we are organizing our piece in a proper way. Now, over there, we might look at how different people have done organization. What kind of forms of organization different writers have used. And so that is the point at which, if we see some model, it might help us. And then we evolve something which is our own. So there may be certain points at which looking at good writers helps us. So I won't say that we don't look at how good writers have written, but we do that at a later stage. First, let's try to do some of the basic work ourselves. So yeah, I can see from the time it's already 12 o'clock, and I have tried to cover some of the main aspects of academic writing. I'm sorry if the mic went off a few times in between, but I hope you've got the gist of it. So I think I will stop here, and then that will give time to people to put in their ideas or ask questions. So I'll put my mic off right now, and other people can speak.
Thank you so much, ma'am, uh, for your valuable insights. It was indeed an intriguing and thought-provoking session. You have aptly explained the difference between academic writing and other forms of writing, and the references which you've given will definitely benefit our participants for sure. And then, ma'am, the quotation which is given by Kipling, slowly, slowly you catch the monkey. I mean, I guess that is perfectly required for, to write. And then, ma'am, the relation between the coronavirus situation and the writing, I mean, the examples which you quoted are worth mentioning, ma'am. It was worth listening. So thank you so much, ma'am. All in all, it was completely worthwhile listening to you, and there are plethora of compliments for you in the chat box. And now, if you permit, we can start with the discussion session. In case anyone has any query, they can come up with it.
Yes, certainly.
I would request the participants, in case they want to ask any question or query regarding academic writing, they are most welcome to ask. Okay. I don't think, ma'am, they are there's any they have got any question.
Yeah, can I just say something?
Yes.
A little bit addition.
Yes.
Yeah, one is that regarding books on academic writing, or more references.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to say that there are lots and lots of books on academic writing, and I first, when I started teaching, I used to use this book. Can you see it on the screen? Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So it's called Study Skills in English. You know, um, so how to make a presentation. It's by Michael J. Wallace. Michael J. Wallace, Study Skills in English.
Okay.
And this tells you about making mind maps and organizing your work, giving a presentation, and so on. Lots of things, participating in seminars, all those things are there. Then there is this book, Study Writing. Study Writing. So
Sorry, ma'am. Your mic.
yeah,
Mic.
here. So just check on the internet, Study Writing. Yeah. And this is by Lyons and Hamplyons and Heasley. You will get the reference on the internet. Okay, study writing. And for the scholars of academic writing, there is this old book by in the modern English publication series, Academic Writing, Process and Product. Process and Product. Academic Writing, Process and Product. It's got lots of good essays in it. Also, I would like to refer you to the journals, So TESOL, if you look at this journal, maybe some of you have heard of it. TESOL is short for Teaching of English to Speakers of Other Languages. And so TESOL Quarterly. TESOL Quarterly, there is this article. TESOL Quarterly is, 1986 actually. I must apologize. These are older books, but there are lots of new books in the market also. But I mean, pardon me for this, but old is gold, I think. So I found lots of useful things here. So there is this article. It says, the title of the article is, "What Professors Actually Require? Academic Tasks for the ESL Classroom." So what professors actually require? So you come to know about what are the expectations, that people have from you. When you're writing, other people have certain expectations. They expect you to do certain things. If you don't do them, then they are disappointed, and they won't publish your work. Okay. So you need to have a sense of those expectations. So anyway,
Sorry, ma'am, your mic has been muted again.
Yeah, so there are lots of books in the market with the and on the internet also, and some by Indian writers also. So you can pick and choose, and try and see which the best books are the ones which give lots of exercises. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so exercises like give, identify, register in the following text, or paraphrase, or distinguish points of view, improve the passage by using appropriate language, and so on. You will find those books good, which give you exercises. So search for those kinds of books. So that's what I wanted to say about further work, further references. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for this valuable information. Moving further, now I would request Dr. Gulshan Kumar, former HOD, Department of English, Swami Premanand Mahavidyalaya, to convey a vote of thanks. Over to you, Gulshan.
Very good afternoon to all of you. I hope I am audible. I hope you all had a fine and extremely fruitful morning.
Mic on.
A very good afternoon to all of you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
I hope you all had a fine and extremely fruitful morning today. And I also hope that you will remain hooked to the screen just for 2 to 3 minutes more to help me perform a duty which I have been asked to perform. Esteemed participants, it is said that thank you is the best prayer one could say. So I deem it a great honor and privilege to have the opportunity to propose a vote of thanks on this memorable event on behalf of my college fraternity. Today is one of the biggest days in the history of our college. Today we have hosted one of our biggest webinars. more than 1,000 participants and intellectual luminaries from various colleges and universities have participated in it and have benefited from the informative and enlightening talk of esteemed Professor Dr. Pushpinder Sayar. I would like to extend my special, sincere, and heartfelt thanks to our illustrious and acclaimed speaker, Professor Dr. Pushpinder Sayar. Madam, you have been my teacher, my mentor, and a beacon light to me right since I was your student in the classroom in 1986. Thereafter, you also helped me write my doctoral thesis. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And madam, I thank you for taking precious time out of your busy schedule and consenting to be our chief guest and speaker for this webinar. Esteemed madam, indeed, your words have passed on valuable knowledge and wisdom to us and goaded us on to take up academic writing and research work, which is so essential for higher education. I think higher education remains dwarfed in the absence of research work. Venerable Madam, the way in which you have explained the subject is extraordinary. You have spoken exceptionally well, and we have been touched by your words of sagacity. We really treasure your insightful remarks and thank you again from the depths of our heart for all your sagacious words that have radiated a source of energy, knowledge, and wisdom in us. I need to multiply the word thank you 100 times to match it with what you have given to us. Thank you, ma'am. Once a great man said, feeling thankfulness and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. I express my deep sense of gratitude to all the participants, intellectual luminaries present here online for taking part in this webinar. All of you have made this webinar a resounding success by evincing a keen interest in listening to our esteemed speaker. Next, I am grateful to our honorable principal, Dr. Sameer Sharma, a dynamic leader and an erudite scholar, and our astute, wise, and far-sighted management for providing their unstinted support for this webinar. Lastly, special thanks to our technical team, headed by Assistant Professor Pankaj Sareen. But for their technical support and assistance, this webinar would not have been possible. Once again, thank you, all of you, and I wish you all a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gulshan sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your wonderful words. And there are some requests I can see on the screen for a link.
Yes, ma'am. We've already forwarded. Ma'am,
So
we
you
forwarded
forwarded?
the link.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And,
great. Great.
and this is for the participants that they are
Yes.
supposed to fill this link, which will be closed by 2 p.m.
Okay, okay.
So
Okay,
they are
great.
to fill this feedback.
Fine, fine,
as early as
fine.
possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
And ma'am, heartfelt gratitude to you and for your
Thank you so
enlightening
much.
lecture. We would love
Thank you
to
so
have
much.
you. We would love to have you in the premises of Swami Premanand Mahavidyalaya after
Yes,
we come
sure.
out with this COVID-19, so that
Sure,
this journey of information and enlightenment continues.
Sure, sure, sure.
Thank you.
Let's
Thank you.
look forward to that. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And best wishes to you all. It's a pleasure to be here with
Thank
you.
you.
Okay,
And
thank you so
ma'am,
much.
And I would like to thank Gulshan sir also, because without his support, he's always been pillar of strength for the department, and without his support, this lecture would not have been possible. All in all, thank you everyone. Thank you. I would like to thank the participants for bearing with us, because there was a little technical glitch in the beginning of the session. Thank you for bearing with us. Thank you everyone.